Dun, dun,
Dun dun.
The reveal.
The reveal, the grand reveal. Hello everybody, good morning, because I think if anybody's watching this right now, we're publishing in the morning. It's a little bit of an afternoon this afternoon, I guess. But we are here, oh my gosh, our second therapist. This is very exciting. I know that my other chats are great too, but there's this sort of safety net here that's really exciting and nice to have you. Brooklynn is here. I always like to put people on the spot and go like, who are you? Who's Brooklynn?
Brooklyn's in the house.
Brooklyn's in the house, that's it. You're too hip for your own good, dude.
Who am I? Who am I? I feel like I'm in Wakanda. Who are you?
Who are you really?
Bottom lip.
Yeah. Who are you really?
I would say, more than anything, I am a human. And I am a carer of people. I am a friend. I am a daughter. I am a spouse. I'm a mom. And I really love potty jokes.
You wanna share one right now with us?
Poop jokes in particular.
The floor is yours.
I think they just. Well, so when I need a good laugh,
okay,
I will turn on the scene from Dumb and Dumber, where he's stranded on the toilet. And he's holding on for dear life, and his feet go out.
That's definitely. I think we've all been there. Maybe
it just makes me happy.
Oh my God, Brooklynn. Well, Brooklynn didn't share also that she's a writer. You are a writer.
I am.
You're a writer.
I do love to write.
Yes, she's a great writer. And she's also a therapist. Are you like a licensed clinical, I know there's different terms.
I am a licensed marriage and family therapist.
There you go. Which
is just fancy for, I am very privileged that people share their stories with me.
Well, we actually met through some work for the LGBT community, and that's how our paths crossed. And I'm so excited to talk to you today.
And I reached out to you online.
You did?
Saw you show up on Instagram, and I said, hey.
And I was like, who is this? Because you just opened, well, how long ago did you open this counseling center?
I opened up a group practice called the Nest Counseling Center in April.
Oh my gosh. Very new.
Very new.
Check her out on Instagram. Are you on all the social media channels?
Sort of.
Okay, well, Instagram for sure.
Instagram for sure.
There's some great stuff, which honestly, I want to bring up this one in particular content that you posted, which was about the committee and how we all have a committee in our head.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, in this particular instance, you called out the mean girl and the cheerleader, and how they're both trying to really be there for you, but ultimately you are the head of the committee and you decide what you need to do next. Yes. And I thought, oh my gosh.
They are on
Brooklynn,
your team.
This is amazing. Like, you were able to it just really resonated with me because you're able to just make it this idea of what happens in your head and how to kind of process it and also celebrate what's yours, and you make it tangible. So anyways, I was like, I gotta have her on here. I was like, Brooklynn, you gotta come on this coffee chat with me. And thank you. And so in our first conversation, we were talking, and we landed on the topic for today, which is language, the use of language, and how it really affects our mental health and the mental health of others, and how it affects other people. It
affects bigger than that. It affects how you tell people to speak of you and speak to yourself.
Go ahead. I'm like, take it, girl, take it.
The language that we use about ourselves teaches people how to speak of us in front of us and when they're not near us.
Okay, let's do some role playing.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah, let's do some examples.
There is nobody in my life that calls me a bitch.
Okay.
Nobody.
Okay.
Not even strangers.
Okay.
And it is because I do not think of myself like that. And so the air that I bring when I meet people, when I talk to people, is one of like, you don't get to call me names. Because that's not who I am. And so I'm not perceived that way. Certainly perceived grumpy at times.
I know another grumpy person in this
But
house.
grumpy, not that label does not define me. And so if someone accidentally says, "Hey, Bish, what's going on?" I will correct them and say, "No, thank you."
You're making it very clear. You're very clear on your boundaries on what,
Yes.
because it does affect you.
It
it affects one.
how I feel about myself,
Yeah.
and what is okay with me and what is not. And what is not okay with me is for someone to take my identity and deconstruct it in a way that I have not granted. And so I tell people, like, the way that you refer to yourself, the way that you describe yourself, is the way that people are going to speak about you in front of you and away from you. And it also impacts the way that you feel about yourself. So there was this great skit on Saturday Night Live many, many years ago, Al Franken, Stuart Smiley. And at the end of the segment, he would look into a mirror and he would say, "I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And doggone it, people like me."
I do remember this one.
And it was such a fabulous way to look at culture of how we speak about ourselves and how we allow others to speak of us. And so,
How do you build this language, by the way? Because that's something that, like, I really try in these interviews to kind of break it down a lot, because some people are not at certain points where they may not even have the language, right? Because they're so overwhelmed by what society has described of them, or have pieced together about them, or what they think they are. How do you do that? So, for example, me, I think the word, my body image, like being overweight, being curvy, or being, finding the right word that makes me feel like I can own it. And I was thinking about this recently. I thought, if I, make my way towards my personal experience of wanting to get to a healthy place for where I feel comfortable in my clothes and my body, for most of my life, I've identified as like being, overweight, curvy. And I'm like, oh my God, like if I am not that person anymore, like say I'm able to keep the weight off and, eat healthier, have a healthier lifestyle. I thought about this and I was like, what about those words? Like, am I not, which is,
do you have to divorce yourself from them then?
I don't know. That's what I don't know. That's why I'm like, this has been so much a big part of my identity.
Is it actually true? There's a quote I love. Toni Morrison, who is such a good writer, such a master of words, right? Of language. And she has this great quote that gives me chills every time I think of it. Definitions belongs to the definers, not the defined. Like, sit with that.
Whoa.
And so, who told you you were overweight? Who told you you're curvy? And did that...
I was like, whoa.
Does that resonate with you? Like, is that actually all you are? Are there other things about yourself that are more important to you? You're kind.
Oh, okay.
You are enthusiastic. You are joyful. You are going to bring giggles wherever you go. And I think those are more important definitions of yourself, for yourself, and how you physically appear. It's like saying all there is to me is blonde. So if I change my hair color, am I no longer blonde?
But you just said something really interesting, and you said, what are the things that you do, that you yourself can come up with? What you see in the mirror when you think about yourself, what are those things? And why do you think it's so hard for some of us to say that? So for example, recently I did an interview with this woman she's a goddess, and she wears these like beautiful crowns, and she goes, you got to flirt with yourself in the mirror, which reminded me of the skit that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I remember standing in front of her and I was like, I don't do this. I was like, I don't even want to. And it was so hard for me to come up with like, you're so pretty, like, it's so hard for me to say, like,
Those things.
or anything. Like, it's just like, why is it so, like, what kind of, like, if I were to, like, press a button and go rewind for anybody out there, like, what are things that I could have done and now I can do, because it's never too late, to kind of find the language I can feel proud of? And
Yeah. Well, I mean, they call them the formative years for a reason.
oh yes,
Because they do form you. And so during that time, did no one tell you how beautiful you are? Right?
not
Did no one tell
particularly.
you, your eyes are sparkling? Or when you laugh, my goodness, there are absolute unicorns that come out of your skull. Rainbows, sparkles. Like, I don't know anybody who's interacted with you that has anything but joyful things to describe you. And so when I hear the goddess say, flirt with yourself in the mirror, and you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I think of, okay, but what do you know how to do? Like, if that's the goal, then how do you get there? And you get there by leaning into the things that you already know how to do. And so, do you know how to smile at yourself in the mirror and, like, feel okay about that? Well, that's where you start. Or do you know that when you put on, for me, it's my gold hoops, my ode to Sade. I love Sade. She's my spirit guide. I love her so much. But when I put on these hoops, I feel good. And I don't care what anyone else thinks of them. I feel good. So when I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh yeah.
Okay, well, you Brooklyn is in the house for real here. That's all I say. I'm just like, how does this happen? What has helped you get here? Because that is amazing, and I think it's so cool to be in the space with you where you like.
Well, part of it is like, let's go way back.
Let's do it.
So, I grew up in a very affluent community, Marin County, West Side. And it's a magical place. It is so beautiful. And it is so restrictive. And it is so suffocating. Because you're either this way or you're pretending to be this way.
There's
right?
no other
There's no
way.
room for expansion. And so when I moved from Marin, I really started to deconstruct who this person was that other people had created, that I was not in charge of. Wait.
Oh wait,
But
wait. You forgot your little. You didn't do your little.
The wonderful,
come on.
the amazing.
Yeah, Anna.
Don't worry, I'll be back to interrupt in like 45 minutes.
Great.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
We will miss you.
Yes, we will miss you.
When you grow up in such an environment where, like, I know people from when I was 3 years old. I'm 48. That's 45 years.
Well, it's like a
Right?
time. Yeah.
45 years that people have an impression of me, a story of me. And so when I was able to kind of like get away from that, I started to really deconstruct who I actually felt I was.
What made you start that process, you think? Is there something that...
Yeah, I had a big rupture in my life. So I grew up raised by my biological dad and my stepdad, who were together for 20 years. And they broke up, which was a good thing. It was also, how do you break up 20 years of a life? It ain't pretty. So that was a big rupture in my life, and it was an opportunity to move. And I jumped on it. I moved to Mexico, so I went far.
It's pretty far. What part of Mexico?
I went to Guadalajara.
Oh my God.
It's
Why Mexico? What do you think? What was it about Mexico that you thought that was?
It was in Vallarta. There was such a strong gay culture, and as a child in the 80s, I was not allowed to embrace gay culture. It was the gay community that raised me, and I was not allowed to feel proud of that. And Vallarta is very gay. I mean, it's just,
I didn't know that.
It is very gay. It's beautiful.
And it's really gay, so sounds
gay.
great.
And like very openly out and proud gay. And so I found a side of myself where I could kind of investigate this piece that I had not really given any time to. And I really was sad about that. Like that I had missed out on that. The times did not allow it. And I found a place where I could celebrate it.
Yeah, okay, let's take a moment to pause there because there's so many facets and dimensions to the community, the LGBT community. I may not have my shirt, but I have my flag. I was gonna, look at her shirt. I was going to wear my shirt and I got makeup on it. So there's different sides to it, and we haven't quite discussed this moment about being a child of gay parents and how you had, in a way, had to be in the closet in a sense.
Absolutely in the closet. Absolutely in the closet.
So what is that like from a child's perspective? I've never...
It's a lot of trauma because you have to hide who you are and who your family is. So, my stepdad, Mel, was the roommate. That's dismissive. I mean, it doesn't hold any weight to who he was in my life and how much he loved me and chose me. So, on the flip side of it, it was magical because I was a part of a secret club.
What's a secret club?
The secret club was the gay club.
Oh.
And so our parties were fabulous. I got to go to the Castro as a young child.
Oh.
I got to sit in gay bars as a young child. And my uncles were so fiercely protective of me. So imagine having this community around you that is we are going to protect you at all costs. We are always here for you. And so it's the place where I feel most at home.
That gives me shivers because, and we talked about this on the phone, it's like, I love my family, but when you are in being an LGBTQ member, you're not always greeted with such true celebration and protecting of just exactly who you are, an understanding, and so I think that's beautiful. When you were telling me, you're like, there's no safer place than with the gay community.
Tribe.
Yeah,
and they are my tribe.
Yeah.
They literally raised me.
Yeah,
I mean it was a tragic time. The AIDS epidemic was just starting.
Yeah. How old were you, may I ask, when that was happening? When it was...
So I remember our first friend dying when I was 5. So that would have been 1980.
As a 5-year-old, you're 5. Do you even understand what...
Well, I understood something was very wrong. And we went to the hospital where our friend, or my uncle, Paul, was in a separate ward, isolated off. And the nurses were coming in hazmat.
Oh, wow. You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And they were very concerned that a 5-year-old little girl was there. And they did not want me to be there.
Wow.
And I remember that feeling of I didn't really understand that, this is my uncle.
Right.
He plays with me.
Yeah.
Why can I not see him? And I crawled into bed with him. He had it was called sarcoma.
Yeah.
And these lesions.
Yeah.
They look like little
pimples or
oval, really deep bruises.
Okay.
And they were all over his face and his chest. And I just crawled into bed with him and was cuddling with him, and he was cooing to me. It was so cool. And I remember one of the nurses walked in, and gasp. What are you doing? You got to get her out of there. And my dad, my bio dad, Lewis, looked at the nurse and said, no. And he gave her the, I will cut you look. She walked out.
Wow.
But I remember I don't remember when he died after that. I just remember that it didn't feel like a long time had passed. So it was 1980. Like just at the beginning, Reagan, I think, was president at the time, and wouldn't say AIDS.
Yeah.
And then as I grew older, the 90s came in, and this drug came out, AZT, that was miserable for people, but it was helping prolong their life. It wouldn't save their life, but it would prolong it. And in like 94, 95, I started volunteering for the Marin AIDS Project. And that was kind of like my re-entry back into the gay community. Because, my tween years through high school, I just rejected it completely.
Really?
Too much social pressure, too much, had to hide everything. Like I was really, really in the closet. And that was terrible.
When you were in this closet, did you ever with your dads, did you ever, were there conversations? Were they?
Never.
No. Oh.
Didn't talk about it. Oh. Did not talk about it. They never said, I'm gay. They never said, you have to lie. You just knew. It was...
wow.
It is something like when I sit with clients who have familiar shame, family shame, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to share with them what's happened to me or my experience of it, but I get it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the closet is a lonely, dark place.
It certainly is. There's not even a light in there, man.
No. Except yours.
Oh.
There is your light.
There is your light.
And that light keeps going, right? That light keeps persevering of moving towards the truth.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah, I recently had an experience. I talked about it, I think, the last coffee chat. But basically, long story short, I met somebody who, is struggling to come out to their family, and they were asking me for advice, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I get to help someone, like the stuff I went through, the hardships. I'm like, oh, I get to actually like make wine out of this, or you know what I mean? Like I get to make something from what I experienced, and I get to do something good with it. And I think that's a very, it's
lovely,
cathartic. Yeah,
it's lovely.
Yeah,
and it's also like a piece of your own journey.
Yeah,
right. Of getting to be like the person who's gone through it.
I know. I'm like,
have I?
That means, yeah, that's why. Yeah, then I'm like, wait. So am I? I mean, honestly, us getting married, that was definitely a big closing chapter for me because everybody that I wanted there to be supportive of this was there and has been there. So, but in any case, I know we're talking about gay Vallarta.
Yeah. So that was part of my deconstruction of this Marin girl who was just living a lie. I mean, there was pieces of me that were true. I just couldn't really explore me. And so I stayed in Vallarta for about 1.5 years, and then I decided to move to San Diego because I didn't want to go back to that suffocation. And I wanted to continue to be me and find out who I was. Like not how other people saw me or like what I saw reflected in other people.
But how did you see yourself?
Who am I?
But this is where it gets interesting for me because you must have been what, in your 20s? You were in your 20s at this point?
Yeah, so that
early
was
20s.
98 to 2000.
Okay.
I was in San Diego, I think, or 99, 2000. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really cool that you were like, I don't know, I always am in awe of people who are like they're gonna they just have the urge and they're making the conscious choice to be like, no, I'm gonna figure out who I am. And I think that's why I make these videos, because there's some people out there who just aren't there yet. And so I always try to figure out, like, there was probably something that was like not eating you, but something that was like urging you.
It was grief. Oh. It was grief. And, you know, like me finding myself was wrapped in a lot of mischief.
Brooklyn in the house.
I did not go to Mexico to deconstruct myself. That is what happened. But that was not my intention. My intention was, I got to get out of here. I need to get out of here. I couldn't have told you at that time why. I could have just told you that something in me was needing to leave. And I just honored that.
I love that. You honored those feelings, because sometimes we're like scared of it, or we were not sure. But I like the word you're using there, that you honored those.
I honored. It felt like that was. I felt like I did not have a choice. I really felt like my life and Marin was dying, and I needed to get the heck out of there. It was like a compulsion. And, you know, I had people that were very upset with me for a long time for leaving.
Oh, yeah?
You know, dear friends and stuff. Some don't talk to me anymore.
Wow.
And that's okay. That was hard at the time. It's okay now. But, you know, as I was like, as I'd meet these milestones, you know, I graduated from community college and got into UCs and got into UC Berkeley.
Hey, Anna will be very jealous. She wanted
Big
to get into Berkeley.
But I also got into UC Irvine, and I picked UC Irvine because I just couldn't go back.
Oh, up north, yeah.
So it was like these opportunities. Here's what I'll say about deconstructing yourself.
Okay.
You will find that you have these opportunities to make a decision. And it's a very clear place in the road. You know, a clear place in the road for me was like, okay, I'm done with Mexico. I'm ready to go back home, home to California. And it was either go back to the Bay Area or don't. And it was a very clear fork in the road. And I picked don't. And so I picked San Diego because I drove to Mexico from the Bay Area, and it looked pretty on the way down.
I mean, it is great, yeah.
That was literally it. So then, like, you know, I do 2 years of community college, best decision ever. And I get into this phenomenal school. I get into Cal, like top of the top. I worked my ass off. And I went, nope. Nope. A very clear mark in the road.
Yeah.
UC Irvine felt better to me.
Yeah.
I felt like I could still be me.
Yeah.
And when I would go back to visit in Marin, it didn't feel like me anymore.
Yeah.
It felt like, you know, the definers placing their definitions on me. And so
The definers, yeah.
it was like, you do see these very marked points in your life where you make a big decision.
Looking back as you see these decisions that you're making, how does it feel to say, like, you like that you have perspective now, and you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I made that decision. Like, I am so happy that I did that. Like, but I also, I don't know, it's like, this is like super existential, but it's like, oh, but do you ever feel like you bring yourself back to that point in that road that you're at the fork of the road, and you're like, you're just sitting with that person, because I'm sure that person was conflicted, and think, yes, it's clear, but I'm sure you were like, this is gonna be a big choice. Like, do you find comfort in, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, do you ever look back and like talk to these different versions of yourself and kind of get in that headspace to like?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't, because there's no point in it. It's not, there is no reversing time. There's no other decision to be made but the one that was made. And thankfully, I guess I've always been kind of an impatient person, and so I make decisions like this.
That's a good thing.
And figure out the consequences later.
Yeah.
I don't really spend a lot of time marinating in the whys or what ifs. I just kind of go, this one feels right. And I don't spend time reflecting on what ifs either, because they don't serve me any purpose.
Right.
I'm not going to go back to them.
Yeah.
The moment's gone.
Yeah.
I made the decision. It is what it is. And if I sit in my life now, my life is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm married to an amazing human who is like, he gets looks wherever he goes because he's just so handsome. But the other reason is he's such a good person. And we created these two amazing little human beings. And like, how could I complain about my life?
Yeah.
Why would I want to go back and make any other decision?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the word you used earlier. You said honoring. So, because I find obviously a lot of my questions that I ask you are things that I think about, you know? And honestly, yeah, I've talked to friends about this too, and it's like, and this is not going to be an easy answer, but I'm just curious what comes to mind, I guess, is like, how do you, I feel like I'm reaching I'm in my mid-30s and I'm realizing, man, I've lived a lifetime. I mean, it's not like I'm a little kid, anymore. I'm like,
Only on the inside.
On the inside, yeah. But it's like, I'm realizing now that I can step away and be like, oh my God, especially when I meet like young 20-year-olds, I'm like, yeah, definitely. They're like, so I step away and I'm like, okay, these are the choices I've made. How do I honor what I have built? And I know it's not the end all be all. Like I'm already making a lot of changes in my life that I'm really happy about, because all of that experience has informed me. So I'm not gonna say it hasn't, but like, that's why my question is like, I guess I don't know if it's that emotional part of me that I don't know why I thought, nurturing these different versions of myself, or I wouldn't say preserving, but I guess honoring is the best word I can think of. Like, does that resonate with you? Do you pick anything up with me saying this? Like, yeah. I don't know.
So I look at it like this. You met Anna. And I've known Anna for an hour, maybe less, half an hour. When you look at Anna, she's a kind person.
Yeah.
Like, she has that sense about her. So you change one tiny thing in your life and you don't meet her. Is it worth it? Right? And the answer is no every time. Like, how...
I love that.
How could you ever... Anybody who meets her and you is going to be like, hey, these are good people.
Yeah.
I want to be around them. And so when you think of like the taking a right-hand turn instead of a left-hand turn, well, then you don't get to meet her.
It's funny you say that, because we've had these conversations before where I'm like, oh, I could have career-wise, I could have gone different places, but then that is what I come up with. I go, but then I don't meet you, I don't. So and it's like,
why would I change that?
Yeah. I've recently actually come to really accept, like, I thought about it, I was like, if I was like a puzzle and somebody was like, okay, if you really want this part of your life out, fine, we'll take it out. And then when I put it in that frame of reference, I was like, wait, no, put it back. Like, that's my puzzle. Like, I was like, wait, that's, even though it may have not been the most pleasant experience, it definitely formed me and it taught me, and it, you know what I mean? Like, so then I was like, wait, and I don't know, for me, I'm coming to a place of honoring everything I've experienced and not regretting anything. I don't know, like, this is what I had to
Well, you
be.
can't divorce yourself from it.
No,
I mean,
you
it
can't.
happened.
You can't.
And I think a piece of it is, this goes back to language. Like, how do you
Yes.
talk about that part of yourself? Right?
Yes.
And so I love that this movie Barbie is out.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Because it is giving people permission to, especially like, assigned female at birth people, it's giving them permission to get back in touch with their playful side.
Yeah.
And, like cis men, they always have that.
Elaborate for the people out there.
Cis men get to play with action toys their entire life. They get permission.
The video games. Yeah.
All of it. They're all made for them. And cis women are expected to mature beyond it. And my question is, why? Like, it is one of the reasons why I love Disneyland so much, is because it is an invitation, a demand that you get to be grossly immature. I mean, I see Chewbacca walking through Galaxy's Edge, and I am an ultimate fangirl. I am just like, oh my God! I know it's not Chewbacca. I know Chewbacca's a character. But I get to like sit with my inner child, right? And like let her come out and play. And so even though my childhood had a lot of trauma in it, there are those pieces of me that played with Barbies and played with Legos and loved all of that. And like, Star Wars was born in Marin.
No way.
Oh yeah. So Marin people have a very intense relationship with Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? So to go to Disneyland and have those be there is to be a child again.
And being a child is, I feel like I talk about this a lot on here, but I would love your perspective on this. Is like, why do you think it is, and I'm wondering you now as a mother, how you navigate this, but it's like, how do you grow up, raising your children, and then at one point, they have to adult, certain responsibilities, but, right?
Yeah,
but where do you kind of draw the line where you can still let them be themselves? Like, because I feel like there's all these filters, there's all these, barriers, and then, I find myself in my mid-30s, like basically taking off all these masks and trying to find who I really am to breathe. Like, it just...
Yeah.
What is up with that?
So, I'm a Gen Xer, which essentially means like, we are the forgotten generation.
Wait, why do they say that? Why do they say that?
Because when they put generations down on paper, they miss 15 years, which is Generation X.
No.
Consistently, yeah. And we're kind of in charge right now. Like, we're like
You
in
are.
our late 40s, early 50s, venturing into 60s. And we're in charge of marketing right now. So guess what? 80s, baby, all day, every day. I think for a lot of Gen Xers, it feels like our childhood was not magical. And because you look at, like, the world is made for kids today. In the 80s, it was not made for kids. Like, the parks were dangerous. Like, people broke things on parks. We were really left to our own devices. And even though I hear Gen Xers say, like, oh, I didn't really have a childhood, I'm like, but that being forced to create your own games.
Your imagination, right?
Yeah, it was magical. And so with my kids, I have always been very intentional about them being children. So Miss Frizzle, baby,
Bristle, baby.
make mistakes, get messy.
Yeah.
I want them to be okay with being dirty. I still want them to take a bath. But, play in the mud, eat sand, play with a cardboard box, be bored, and grow up at your own pace.
Yeah.
We still do fun, ridiculous things. When it rains, we haven't done this in a while, but when it used to rain, we would grab our shoes and go out puddle jumping. Or go to the park and find worms. Stuff like that is honoring them being kids. And also, you get to participate.
I know. That sounds like so much fun.
It is so much fun.
That's so much fun. Well, one of my therapists did say, if you really want to be present, she's like, hang out with kids or dogs or animals.
Oh, for
and
sure.
you will just, and I think that's very true.
You can't be anywhere else.
You can't, literally.
Because they're moving all over the place. And you're just trying to keep them alive.
Yeah.
Right? And, they're exploring, they're climbing, they're doing all these things. And it's having that sense about you of they have to experience danger so that they know what it feels like.
Yeah.
They have to fall down so that they know what it feels like.
Yes.
And in doing that, you also get to experience that.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work, a lot of really great work. And it's also a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun, going to a kids' museum. So much fun. Watching them play at the beach. I mean, can you see happier children than just dirty and sand and water?
So cute. So cute.
It's magical and there's nothing to do there.
Yeah.
Unless you bring a bunch of crap with you, which I'm not doing. But it's really magical to just sit and watch them.
Yeah. Now there's also the whole thing about I do want to talk about language and emotions and how, so I don't know how it was for you growing up, but growing up for me it was get over it. Don't cry about it. Just, you're going to be fine. Don't be sad about it. Let's move on. That's, that was just the way it was. And in my family, I was the one that was, I like to say now, instead of saying I was so sensitive or emotional, I like to say and this is Anna's help. And this is part of the language part where she's like, you're making it sound like it's this negative thing, but it's you're just really in touch with your emotions.
You were aware.
You're aware.
Yeah.
And
you declined the invitation to push it away.
Yes. But see, growing up, right, nobody taught me this language and using language to see myself in a better light, which comes back to the very beginning of how do I find language that I feel best describes me? And so I didn't realize even just changing those words about me instead of growing up all these years saying I'm too emotional and switching it was almost it just sort of just completely literally did a flip.
Freed you.
A what?
It freed you.
What's that? A free do?
It freed you.
Oh, freed me, yes.
Free. Yeah. A freed you?
Oh, a free? What's that? I want some of that. It freed me, yes, it did. And I think that's the power of language is it can, but if we can, if we're given the tools to figure out what that can look like, what advice do you have for people out there to use language to help them through some of their anxiety and their, the things that hold them back sometimes?
Well, this goes back to the committee and the committee in our head. And it's, Star Wars fan. I think of the, when all the senators are meeting and their little pods come forward to speak.
Okay.
I think of that's what's inside my brain, and each pod is an emotion or an opinion. And my two loudest ones are the cheerleader and the mean girl. The mean girl, I have two names for her. When I'm really angry at her, I call her Contisha.
Okay.
When I'm not so upset with her, I call her Brooklynn.
Love it. Love it.
And the cheerleader is Brittany.
Oh.
Oh, Brittany. Brittany is out again. But when I look at these, when I look at the emotions, when I look at opinions that are bouncing around my head,
Yeah.
I remind myself that these are all on my team. They are all working for me, not against me. Never.
Did you all hear that? Say that one more time.
They are all working for me, not against me. Never. So even though they may say some terrible things,
Yeah, that negative self-talk.
yeah, it's like, I was also a child that was not told that she was pretty. And so when I catch myself with that negative self-talk, I go, okay, so what's going on? Like, this is telling me that I need to be alert to something because I don't really feel that way about myself. And it's not a kind thing to say. And so I will focus on something I do feel good about. I feel good about that people feel good around me. And I feel good that I care for people. I feel good that people allow me to care for them. They give me permission to step in. And that helps redictate the conversation in my head by the committee.
Yeah.
It allows the cheerleader to kind of come forward a bit and tell the mean girl, like, I got this. It's okay. It's okay. You can be sad.
I like that.
You can be hurt. Let's step forward with positivity. Not toxic positivity.
What's toxic positivity?
Oh, Lordy.
Maybe I do it sometimes. I'm not sure. Let's see the definition.
Well, toxic positivity to me is where you cannot acknowledge the negative.
Oh, you're kind of like avoidant. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, but it's...
That everything's great. No, it's not. Everything is not great. And when you do that, it's like you don't allow depression to come forward. Well, what is depression trying to get you to do? It's trying to get you to think. It's trying to get you to slow down.
Oh.
It's taking care of you.
I've never heard of it like that. Depression like that.
It works on your behalf, right?
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
So
I've only come to realize that anxiety works on my behalf to protect me, and sometimes it goes
it goes a little
crazy.
overboard.
Overboard.
But anxiety too, it's like it's protecting you from the bads. Anxiety is the what ifs. It is the epitome of what ifs. Right? And depression is like trying to get you to slow down, be reflective.
Wow. Wow.
Maybe you're just tired.
Wow.
Right?
Right.
Like depression is something that we need to sit in. It's not to be avoided. You can't avoid it, for one.
No, you can't. You can't.
But like sometimes it tells you that you're losing something you really love. And that is terrible. And it's also true.
It reminds me of, I feel like last year my depression just hit a breaking point of, I really need to dedicate some time to figure out what's happening with me. And I'm really happy. It was hard at the time, but obviously having a supportive partner like Anna, I had someone to really, I think in any relationship, it was like, I think it was one of those times where I'm like, wow, it was a defining moment in our relationship to be like, wow, I really, I always think about like the team building thing where you're like, just trust me and fall down, It's like, I'm falling and I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but
I hope you're strong enough.
I hope you're strong enough, right? And yeah, I was lucky in that and I was fortunate in that. And
No.
No? Well, tell me, what did I say? Okay, here we go, language, what?
You were not lucky.
No?
You were not fortunate. You earned that. You cultivated that. That did not magically happen. There was no happenstance in that. There is no luck around Anna.
Yeah.
There is earned.
Yeah. I guess you're right.
No, I'm right. There's no guessing around this. Relationships are earned.
Wow. Yeah, I love my family, and I'm not gonna say that. You know, now I have a weird saying. I was fortunate. I did have a home that was filled with love. I've learned through the help of therapy and all that there were limitations on how my family could support me emotionally and mentally.
Absolutely.
But I am really happy that I found someone that can meet my needs in that sense, you know? And I'm actually really proud of myself that I was, oh my God, is this gonna happen? I'm proud of myself that when I met her, I saw it. Yes. I saw it, you know what I mean? Like, I was aware and like, this person is somebody I want in my life, and that I'm so happy that I was in a space where that I allowed that clarity. I don't know, because it's, you know, I could have been in a different space where I was just like not ready for it or whatever.
You could have turned away from it.
Could have.
Fork in the road.
Yes, it was a fork in the road.
Yeah.
But I was like, nope, this is what I need. Like, this is what I need.
Yeah. So you took those pieces of your family.
Yeah.
Like the beautiful pieces of love.
Yes.
And also what I heard was an undercurrent of they did the best they could.
Yes.
Right?
They did.
And so it's loving who they are and not who they're not. And in doing that, like when you come to terms with that piece,
yes,
that's part of the self-deconstruction, right? Then you also give yourself permission to meet someone.
I love that. For any single girls out there, listen to this. It is true, you know, I mean, and so last year when I was, you know, going through this, which I call it it's not even, I mean, it is a transformation in some ways. Like I've had a mental, emotional transformation. And I know I don't know how else to describe it, but to say like, I know I'm exactly where I need to be, which I don't think that I've truly felt before. I know that, I don't know if that sounds strange, but.
Did your depression help evolve you?
Yes.
Like in leaning into it, did it help evolve you, your relationship?
Yes. In relationship with myself too. Yeah. Like
your trajectory of where you wanted to go.
Yes, it did. And also it helped me find myself back to myself. And I'm not just even talking about back to myself even like 2018 Jackie. I'm talking like I'm talking about 10-year-old Jackie, and I'm just like, okay, I see you. Like
there you are,
and it's and so you talk about like, oh, did your parents ever tell you that you're? And it's funny, you know, and this is very in the Hispanic culture. It's a lot of Latinas, like especially women my size, probably feel this way. Is like, la gordita, like which means fatty girl, right? For this, right? And so. There's always been a lot of like eyes on people's size, like especially girls.
La flaquita.
La flaquita. Oh yes, which means a skinny girl. So when you were flaquita, then all of a sudden people would take notice and be like, oh, you're so pretty. But when you were la gordita, like nobody would tell that to you. So
you can be funny or you can be angry.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, how suffocating is that?
Oh my God. And so one-dimensional too. I mean, I think humans are so many things. And I am leaning hard on this, Brooklyn, where I'm leaning on the human experience of really, truly, like, being present in that.
But do you feel bad about your body? Or do you see disappointment in other people about your body?
This is a great question. And I was literally just talking to Anna about this week. I'm in a point in my life where I'm like, I love my body, and I may not be at the place I want to be ideally because of from a look perspective. Yes, I'm not gonna lie to you and say yes, I'm the ideal shape, like place I want to be. But I love my body because for the first time, I'm like, I do feel in my heart that I'm loving it the best I can.
Yeah.
Because most of my life was like, I gotta lose weight because I gotta make other people happy. Other people see me, right? Other people think I'm this and that. And last year was like when I made this evolution, I finally realized like, whoa. How do I feel about my body? You know, how do I, like take everyone out of the room. How do I feel about it? And then I started to slowly build a relationship with myself, and that included my body and loving my body the way I felt comfortable and authentic to it, which meant, you know, I would go on walks, and like now I'm like, I don't hate myself if I'm like decide to eat whatever I want to eat, you know. I'm just I just have a more loving grace with my body than I ever have before. And I think it's I think part of that is because it's as simple as like I just feel like I'm truly loving myself and giving myself grace in a way that I never have. And so it allows me to maneuver through anxiety and depression and these things that I deal with, and my body's is holding me to the best it can, you know?
Well, what a lovely experience to remember of being in this place where you're not shaming yourself. Right?
Yeah.
I would ask you to go a step further.
Okay, let's go.
So I'll share part of my journey with this. I was always flaquita, always. Skinny, 120 pounds, like tiny waist, big butt. And I didn't have to try. And, you know, age is weird. You know, I'm almost 50, and I gave birth to twins. So
how big did you?
Bigger than I can wrap around.
Did you get like this or like this? My mom was. I'm a twin.
Yeah.
As she knows, and my mom was like.
Oh, it was big. It was all.
Oh, it was all.
Just all.
Because they were moving around. Like how that goes. Oh my God.
So my body's never gone back to where it was, and so I had to really reconcile of not being the skinny girl anymore. Right?
This is very similar to what we were saying earlier about me and the curve.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
So what I kind of reconciled was, okay, does my body get me to where I want to go? Yes, it does. Every time. And I have asthma. So sometimes it's really hard. But you know what? My feet always get me to where I want to go. My legs always get me to where I go. And not everyone gets to say that.
Yeah.
I can eat street tacos at any time, and my stomach is always happy. So even my insides allow me to do what I want to do. How can I be so mean to my body when it does so much for me?
How do you get there though? How do you get that aware?
I started looking at, you know, I don't feel the need to keep up with the skinny girls. I don't care what I look like at the beach anymore. You know what? And because my kids don't care. My spouse doesn't care. What they care about is, am I healthy?
Yeah.
And I am.
Yeah.
So it allowed me to kind of let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. It allowed me to really appreciate everything that my body does for me. And I have worked with clients who have disordered eating, and to see the jail that they're in over it.
It really is all here. Like I've told people who've struggled with it, and I'm like, nothing changes if you don't have and that's why I'm so happy to share with you today. Like that's why I'm like, oh, I feel comfortable answering this question, very comfortable, because it's like, I finally am like, wait, no, like baby, I love you, like me, like baby, like it's okay, like if you're this size, like baby, I love you, because like my body's gonna change a lot. You know, it's gonna continue to change, and I'm gonna be like, no, like
thank goodness it does.
And I also feel kind of like, honestly, recognize it in this moment. I'm like, I do feel a little like, but it's all hindsight, right? I'm like, oh, I feel sad that I do feel a little sad that I was, I listened to all the wrong people and I didn't listen to myself and just taking care of myself for me.
And it got you here.
But it got me here.
And so can you, from the goddess's perspective, sit in the mirror
Right.
and be able to look at yourself and say, yeah, baby, I'm
Yeah,
doing
baby.
this. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And your body just got you to Hawaii and back.
Hell yeah.
It's doing things,
It's doing things.
right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
And so that's where I want to like offer that to you.
Thank you.
Of looking at it from less of an aesthetic perspective,
Yeah.
and look at it from, does your body get you to where you want
Yeah.
to be?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, okay, then there's work, right?
Yeah.
If your body is getting you to
Yeah.
where it wants to be, where you want it to be, excuse me, then you're healthy, you're good.
Yeah. Where does this aesthetic thing happen? Because I'm sure, and I ask this for a lot of people out there that are probably asking this. Because the truth is, like, there is some euphoria, right? There's some joy that comes from feeling good in your body, even aesthetically. Like,
Well,
because some
do
people
you
are.
ever?
Well, here's the thing. I'm being very honest here, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Okay, y'all, please cut me some slack here, but I do want to be healthy, yes. And Anna and I have had many conversations about this, but she's like, let's cut the bullshit. She's like, do you really want to be thin or healthy, or do you just want to be skinny? Like, there's some dichotomies here, and I go,
Yes.
okay, thank you, fair question. That's why I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna say that I'm at that ideal weight and I'm looking like I really want to look like. But regardless of that, I do feel a deep love, and the shame is not there. Mm-hmm. But I see them differently now, instead of like contingent on each other. I feel like I think that's where I'm at right now. Where do I want to be? I obviously want to be in a place where I feel like I really can trust myself with the decisions I'm making to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. That's where I want to be. And yeah, I want to look in the mirror and be like, you look hot, Jackie.
Will you
I
ever
do.
be there? I can tell you, as a formerly skinny person,
Never.
I was never there. Not once. And I look at pictures of myself in my 20s, I was like, damn, girl.
Oh, nobody ever feels anybody.
Wow. Look at that. You had a six-pack and didn't acknowledge it.
You did have a six-pack?
I did.
Damn. I don't know. I mean, I think that's where I'm like, I don't think I have necessarily the pressure of, yes, I would like to, it's not like I want to be this like hot girl, but I want to feel like I know I feel good about myself.
Yes.
Does that?
But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is, aesthetically, is it ever going to be good enough for you? Mm-hmm. And I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either.
Like, I really don't.
To be honest, I don't know either. Like,
I just know that, from going from a size 6 to a size 12, that there's not a point where I've looked full body mirror and gone, that's exactly how I want to look. Ever. I didn't try to have a six-pack. I was just mischief. I was in mischief. But I do look at myself now, and I go, the C-section apron isn't great. And it gave me my babies. So
it's all good.
it's okay. And I look at, my stretch marks as, and this has taken work to do. Like, this was not an overnight thing. I look at them as badges of honor of like, it is my privilege to have my body evolve, because not everybody gets to do that. And especially like, when my most favorite person in the world died, when my stepdad died, it was looking at him and knowing that he doesn't get to experience my kids, and my kids don't get to experience him. It makes those stretch marks lovely. Because it means I'm getting older. And that I am absolutely, I've always been okay with.
Yeah.
Wrinkles and all.
Brooklyn in the house, man.
Brooklyn and half.
What, I mean, that is so, I just feel it's so refreshing. It's like fresh fruit, what I'm hearing, it just feels really like, What helps you, like, what in your life has continued to help you have this sense of, this outlook on, like, this perspective that you have that is so wonderful, honestly? It's...
Age is part of it.
Yeah.
You know, having great conversations with people like you. I have to share this with you first. So when we were working at the same place, and you put your picture on your email, I was like, I like her.
What do you mean? You could just, what do you mean?
I like her. We're going to be friends.
Oh.
I just knew that. And so I very intentionally sent you words of encouragement.
She always
I
did.
see you.
You always did, dude.
I see you.
You always
I see what
did,
you're doing.
dude.
You're doing too much, and I see you.
I was honestly, I was just like, who is this? Because we didn't meet until way after.
In person.
In person. But I was like, damn, this Brooklyn is so like, you were just very encouraging and very kind in some challenging times. And so it was like, oh, so that's cool to hear that
picture. I was like, I like her.
What do you mean my picture? What do you
Your picture. Like, you can tell so much from a picture.
Really?
Same with Anna. I saw Anna, I was like, I like Anna.
Well, when you were talking about Chris, was it?
Flowers.
Chris, right? Mm-hmm. When you were like, he's a good person, I'm like, that's exactly how I feel about Anna. I'm like, she's just a good person, and I don't know. And all the dating I did, I didn't meet any, like, when you say good.
Her.
Yeah, no.
It's like that, you just meet a compliment.
Yes. And I love how you described, that's why I love language, because it's like, oh, that's how I feel. And you're like, I took these elements of what I did enjoy from my family, what I am appreciative of, but I integrated them with the things that are, you know, I think a lot of the times, I mean, I don't know, I guess I can just speak for myself in this case, but I felt a lot of the time like, oh, I have to like replicate my family, or I have to like, you know, like that's how it, but then I realized, I'm like, wait, I was born into the family, so what I get to do now is I get to bring myself to the family I'm building. You know, It doesn't have to be, and that's okay. And I think the gay thing honestly was a big influence in how I saw that, because I thought, well, back in the day I felt, oh, I already disrupted my family with this negative stuff, so I'm gonna just bring their stuff. That's how my mind worked.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not in that place anymore, but that did influence, like...
But you had to break through cultural, religious...
Oh, God, don't even
and
get me
then
there.
family systems, right?
Yeah.
And so it's another way to look at your body. Like, it got me through that.
all that.
How can you not just love and embrace it?
Oh, my gosh. That's a very good point.
You know?
I didn't think of it like that.
It helped you survive.
It helped me survive, yeah.
Yeah. And also see the good.
Yeah.
Which is fabulous.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Dropping it today.
You are dropping it?
I don't remember what
You were
I
going to
was
say
saying.
something, huh?
I was.
Was
and
it
I lost
about...
it over your picture.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about your picture. We met...
Oh, age.
Oh, yes, age. Let's talk about
So, part of it's age, part of it's experience, to be able to get to a place of like, you care more about that the people around you see you, know that you love them, and they reciprocate that love with you. You start to care more about that than the noise outside.
Yes.
Right?
So much noise, yeah.
And your 20s is all about that noise and finding yourself within it, right?
Yeah.
Your 30s is about like quieting that a bit.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Yeah, it's like you are turning the volume down.
I love the language that you're using. That resonates with me a lot. I felt like it was during the pandemic actually, and it was right before the pandemic actually that I was already starting to feel the depression, and now that you've educated me on all this stuff right now, I'm starting to put the pieces together of that. I think I was finally hitting a wall of like, I can't be this way anymore, and it was a fight, and could have been the time, it was a fork in the road, and I was like, something's not right, like this doesn't feel like me anymore, this is not the right path, like I can't continue how I'm doing, because I will.
Yeah.
And I just want to state, and I would love your thoughts on this, is like, at that time, it was, even at that time, and then the years following, where I was clawing myself out and trying like this, I felt like I was in a ring with myself. Like then the real me and what I had built to myself to be, and trying to figure out which way. But I realize now that I have the hindsight of doing the work, going to therapy and all this stuff. Now I realize like I didn't have to be so extreme about it, in the sense of like I should have worked. They were all part of my team.
Yeah.
I should have worked together instead of trying to pick one or the other.
You couldn't at the time, though.
No, I couldn't at the time, no.
And you did the best that you could.
I did.
And that's that, like, reframe, right?
Reframe.
Instead of saying should, which I think is just a synonym for shame.
Interesting.
Instead of saying I should have done this, it's like I did the best I could.
I did the best I could.
And it got me here. And I'm really happy with here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like all those things you went to were required for you to be here. And that's lovely. So that's a way to look at like your journey and not be so pensive on the what ifs. Not marinate in those.
And you're just
right? Like you can sit and look at them and go, that was an interesting decision. Not sure I would have done it the same way, and also I wouldn't change it. Like if I was faced with the decision today, would I do it differently? Well, of course you would, because you already know what happened when you did it the first time.
Do you think this pensive nature of mine do you think there's something that I am not? I mean, it's hard for me to move on sometimes, and loyalty, I'm big on that. I don't know, I'm just curious since I have you here. And you're picking up on these comments I'm making about these what ifs, and
well, the language that you're using.
Yes, the language I'm using
is telling me how you talk about yourself on the inside.
Damn. Okay. Right to it. Yes.
So,
boom, boom. Like, oh my God. Brooklyn's at the house. All right.
So,
let's do it.
Because you're so willing,
I'm here.
I am picking those pieces out of places where I can go, hey, what about this? Is this the kindest way that you can be to yourself? Or, look at this. This is beautiful. How lovely that you're doing this. So, in therapy, I call it thickening or thinning the story.
Okay.
Right? So, you want to thicken the stories that bring you joy. And you want to thin the stories.
Oh my God.
That beat yourself up over.
Okay.
So, like the story of anxiety.
Yeah.
Or being too emotional. Or my favorite is taking things so personally.
Oh my God. I have to walk over eggshells on you.
Personally? Like I'm a person. Like I'm going to take it personally.
Okay.
Don't quite understand that, but okay.
But language,
I'm
right?
Take it
I wonder where that comes
every
from.
Time.
Where does that come from, by the way?
I think it comes from people trying to be dismissive. I think it comes from people trying to make others smaller. I think it comes from, like, when you say that someone is too emotional. What does that mean exactly? How can you be too emotional? You are a human who experiences emotions. How is there too much of that? Is it that the person is uncomfortable with the way that you're expressing it outwardly? That sounds like what it is to me. And if that's what it is, that's not really my problem, that's yours.
Okay, this is off the record. Cut. Well, this is not going to be in the video. But so the video that I did today, I sent it to my family. And my dad, typical dad, he's like, I don't get it. He doesn't get the video.
Sure.
And the video's, it's a very simple message. I think it's a very simple message. It's nothing, it's just simple. And to be honest, I did it because I was trying to like just express put my feelings and heal and just like process my grief, and that's what I did. So I tried to explain it to him, and then of course he brings in religion, which I don't have a problem with religion, but he's like, there's, in Spanish, it's like, there's your idea of what's going to happen basically, and like God's plan. Your plan and God's plan is un dicho, it's a saying in Spanish, in Mexico. And I'm just like, but that's where there's moments like that, and I'm like, yeah, that's why it's been such a interesting, that's why I'm going to try to use a little language now. That's why it's been such a challenging time with my family because I just see the world differently.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it, hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
But just like the committee, they're doing the best they can. Right? So, like, there is a way to look at your dad and say, that's not helpful. Right? Or, why aren't you seeing me process my grief?
Yes.
And then you look at the way that he responded to your mom, and this is the best he can do.
Right.
And so if you can look at him and say, okay, this is the best he can do. And so he's trying to be helpful because he doesn't hate me.
Right.
He doesn't want me to be sad. So then you can kind of remove yourself from it and go, okay, that's his.
Yeah.
And mine is my truth.
And so much of my truth, I think that goes back to, I guess we'll go back into it. I just shared a personal story that it's will remain personal, speaking of personal. But I do recognize that language has played a big role in the way that I see myself, and like you're saying. So, where am I going with this? There was something. Oh, yeah. So, that's what I was going to say. I think because I knew that, like, me being gay was going to be, for my family, was going to be such a, just a reaction, and it just, like an alien just landed in their house kind of thing, where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I've sort of have hung on to trying to help my family try to see me the way I see myself, and that has, unfortunately, I think that's caused a lot of my pain and disappointment.
Yes.
Does that?
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing, let me know if this feels true, is that you are managing their process with it.
Yes, I've been doing that all these years, but I've let go of that.
Good.
Once I got married, that was sort of like even me, like, telling my sisters, like, hey, you gotta tell your kids, this is my timeline, whenever you're ready. Like, that was a big thing. And my therapist helped me. Actually, we had conversations like, how are we gonna do this? And it was like a whole thing. And that was definitely, so definitely I'm in a different place right now. But I do, if I were to reflect, I think it has there's ripple effects. It's like, although, yes, I don't carry that anymore, I still have it's still happening. It's still the residuals of doing that work, and and then the way I think, and you know what I mean, like I spiral and stuff like that. And language, I think, can be a tool to help process things. I
with my younger clients, especially all clients really. I share with them, especially when they have trauma from a family member or from like a group. But more specifically with the family, the first question I ask them is, do you love this person? And if the answer is a definitive yes, I asked, is that love reciprocated? Most of the time it's yes. So then I say, is it possible that we can open up maybe this thought that they did the best they could? Where they were in that moment with the decisions made, do you think that they did the best they could? Or are they a sociopath, which sometimes is true, and they lack empathy, and they're only doing things for their own gain? And if that's the case, well, we've got a different avenue to explore.
Right.
If that's not the case, and you do believe that they love you all of the time, maybe they don't like you all the time, but they love you all the time, then is it possible that they were doing the best they could? And if that's true, you do not have to affirm their actions. You can look at them differently, as like, it wasn't intended to attack you. It was intended to do the best they could with what they had. And it's certainly not to explain their actions or their words. It is a way to reframe it for yourself and the way that it lives inside of you. And so like when you can sit and go, Like my dad was, poor thing, he was very abusive. And I understand why. His parents were terrible. And being gay was not okay. So I understand where all of his trauma comes from. I don't excuse that he put his hands on me. I also believe that he did the best he could. And so because of that, I can still love him.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, like, I feel like all of this is leading up to that preservation of, like, at least still acknowledging and feeling that love from your family member, right?
Yeah, or just someone who's hurt you, right? Like, you think of former friends or like exes, and most of them we can sit with the knowledge of they really cared about us. And that they did the best they could. It doesn't mean that that was the right relationship for us.
Yeah.
It just means they did the best they could. And that their intention was not to do us that type of harm. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But when you can sit with that, it alleviates some of the pressure from yourself. And I suspect that is what forgiveness is about. Is alleviating that pressure.
Yes.
But it's such a loaded word, I don't like to use it.
Yeah, forgiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like when you reframe it, it's a way to like acknowledge what happened and also go, they weren't trying to beat me down.
Yeah, because now I think about it, when I think of the word forgiveness, it also feels like you're kind of like losing something or invalidating your feelings.
It feels permissive.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But I do like being able to sit with myself or encouraging clients to sit with themselves and go, hey, if you can look at the perspective of like when you do wrong, which we all have and will do again, was it our intention to cause such an emotional reaction, like such a negative emotional reaction?
Yeah.
And the answer usually is no. So if you know that about yourself, then you can offer that to others as well.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier that you have a lot of, you work with marriage and family, right? Marriage, family situations.
Individuals. Couples. Thruples.
Yeah, all of it.
All
of it. But it's interesting how all these formative years, as you were talking about, like really are the inception of what you will probably later see in adults, the impact that's being made. And
it's the creation of your lens.
Yes. Yeah, the creation of your lens.
Right? Like how you see the world is created in those years.
Yeah. And so you talked about how there's always going to be disappointment. You mentioned this. And I thought, okay, what is this idea of disappointment? Is it there to serve us?
Yes.
How so?
See how I make decisions?
Boom. Boom, done. Brooklyn in the house,
I can't say that I have. So just full disclosure, like some of the questions that you answer or that you ask me, it's not that I've really thought about them before. It is me leading with my gut of, where my gut goes is disappointment is a committee member. And the committee member is on our side. And so the answer is yes.
I love that.
And I think disappointment resides with anxiety, with depression, with expectations. And it's a way to inform us of like, how do we not let that happen again? So that's anxiety protecting us. What if? So a piece of that is acknowledging whether you failed to set reasonable expectations. Reasonable being the operative word, right? And so you can own that piece. Maybe you failed to state them at all. Maybe you had an expectation that they didn't know about. Maybe you did state it and they agreed to it.
And
I just didn't do it. Okay, now you have to sit and go, well, what's my boundary here? And not boundary of like, think boundary gets confused with consequence.
Wait, what do you mean?
Boundary to me is, here is what I'm going to do if you cross stated thing. It's not what I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to say, if you cross my boundary, my action is this. Not, if you cross this boundary, here's what I'm going to do to you.
Oh yeah, it's never.
Yeah, it's always inward.
Yeah.
So in therapy, I talk a lot with people about what is your deal breakers. And deal breakers to me are like, not that you're leaving, it's just that you have to seriously consider whether to stay in this relationship. It's an extreme boundary. So with disappointment, it's, typically it's like you feel a sense of injustice, of unjust has happened to you. And I think when you ruminate on it, or you think back on it, it's, you are trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. So a way to do that is like, what piece do I own? And what piece am I going to enforce, if any? So if it's a disappointment of, I think with couples especially, it's someone didn't do something. And you're not going to leave the marriage or the relationship because they did not do something. I hope.
I was gonna say,
if you are, you didn't come to me soon enough. But what you can do is you can express, oh wow, I feel really disappointed about that. And, I think my piece is probably I didn't state that this was important to me. And it was important that you carry it out. Or I'm feeling disappointed about this. This is kind of something that keeps happening. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm feeling disappointed. I thought we had an agreement and it feels like we don't have it anymore. Because I feel like I'm doing my piece. Am I still doing my piece? So that's anxiety taking over, right? What are the pieces I can control? So I do think it's informative.
It is informative for sure. When you say it like that, it definitely feels that. It definitely.
But you do go through that process, right? And so it's that honoring piece of understanding what your process is and honoring all those voices in the committee of like, they're on your side, they're working towards you, for you.
What you were saying right now reminded me of, it's kind of cool to see all the pieces come together with all the different people I've been talking to. But like Yvette Cervantes, what you just said rings true because she talked about how like any relationship, you have to talk through things. It's not going to be like everything's going to be, you have to work through things together. And I think these disappointments help us recognize where the gaps are or where there's moments where we need to reassess or reflect and see how we can, get back.
The tender spots.
Yeah.
And the tender spot I think that we have a hard time with is when someone is disappointed with us.
It's so disappointing.
So brutal.
When they're like in movies and they're like, oh, you're mad? And you're like, no, I'm just disappointed.
You're like, oh,
you're
just
like,
take the knife out.
You're like, why is that harder than like someone being like, I'm just mad at you? What is it about the disappointment? Because it's like.
Because I think mad is like
it's a quick thing,
quick emotion, like it burns quickly. And disappointment is like, oh, there's a story behind this one.
But I do find beauty in those moments, to be honest, because they do help to strengthen a relationship or clarify things, or like you were saying, like how you beautifully articulated it. And part of with Anna and I, we're very communicative, especially now that we have our business together. So we're very like, how are you doing? Very,
the check-ins.
And all that stuff. And one of the things we really talk a lot about, and I think I'm not alone in this, is there's a lot of women out there who, especially business owners who, we talked about confidence. And so how do you build that confidence and trust within yourself? what advice do you have? Because, Brooklyn's in the house, so I know you got something to say about that.
Confidence is built on experience. So you're confident in something because you know how to do it. You know how to do it because you've done it before. And you have failed repeatedly. So,
did you hear that, everyone?
Allowing yourself to, I'm telling you, Miss Frizzle was ahead of her time.
She really was. What were you saying? Allowing yourself?
Allowing yourself to make mistakes. Allowing yourself permission to not be perfect all the time. To not have to deliver, at the highest high all the time. Is hard because it can feel like there's not enough spots for us.
Yes.
And it's also a lie because there are enough spots for all of us. And I think of it as like, the difference between feeling competitive with someone and feeling collaborative with someone.
Oh, yes. I remember you made
right? So competitive with someone is scarcity. You're competing for something that you think is limited in resource. Collaborative is looking at it and going, you know what? I am really good in my lane and you're really good in yours. How can I support you in your lane? How can I collaborate with you?
I love that.
Because if you succeed, I succeed. And so how can we do this together? Yes, we may be in the same field.
Yeah.
But your clients are not my clients. And so if your clients come to me, I'm sending them to you 100% of the time. And it's not because I expect you to do the same. It's because I care so much about the field that I want the person to have a good experience. And if I know that their experience is going to be better served with you, I'm sending them to you every time. And so I think that kind of like, it's a way to build confidence, right? Is like, you talk with other people about what their pitfalls were. And you can learn from them and like their vulnerability and being, and sharing their mistakes with you.
Yeah.
And you can share your vulnerability of your fears of making those mistakes and then still make them.
Well, yeah, there's such fear. I know for myself, I put so much fear on making those mistakes. And I've recently come to really happily so recognize that my value has nothing to do with my work.
Yeah.
But that took, I had to experience all that to get here.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think literally the other day we were like having dinner we kind of cleared up our space over there. We had dinner there and we were like making a little shopping list. I was just looking at her and I was just like, man, like this is such a, it's not silly. It's just a very simple thing but for me, it's very meaningful. It's like, man, like I felt like all my 20s I was running, searching on a quest for something to make it all like mean something.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is just as beautiful. Like this mundane moment, like just with my partner and just, and for me, that's a big deal because of, I'm happy that I can feel that gratitude. And you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, oh, no matter what happens, it's like, I don't know. I'm happy that I can see that and it's like, here's the thing, the power of language is like, people would say, oh, it's in the little things, but it's like, can we change that? It's like, it's not even in the little things, it's in the
things.
It's in the things.
It's in all of it.
It's in everything.
It's in everything. Yeah,
I like
thank
that.
you. It's
I
in
like
everything.
that. Yeah.
Because it's, again, you can't take that one piece out of it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like playing Jenga.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want the tower.
Right.
Taking one piece out disrupts it. And so being comfortable in what other people might define as mundane, you define as delightful.
Yes.
As comforting.
Yes.
There's nothing more than that I love more than just watching Chris
Aw.
when he's in his element.
What's he doing when he's in his element?
Oh, he's talking about basketball. He's being a dad. He's, got bounds of energy. And so he's moving and he's happy. Like you could just see that joy in him when he's creating things. Or even like when he's relaxing. Like I love just staring at him sometimes. And he...
Sounds like you're in love.
Very. Very. More so than I was 20 years ago when we first met.
Wow. Oh my God. Wait, Anna, tell her your, I had a question. Okay, so this is one of an existential question we were talking about. I told her, I was like, I was so, I don't know, long story short, I was like, we have all these like high moments and these like really low moments and then there's just like these just mundane moments, for lack of a better word. And then Anna goes, life's not a TV show, Jackie. And then continue to, what else? Then you ended up saying something really eloquent.
We need, life is an aggregate of all those mundane moments because that's what gives like those highs and lows depth. Without those, there's no context of those highs and lows. So those mundane moments are really what life is.
Yes.
Those highs and lows are just like random spikes, but the actual path of life is all those mundane moments.
They're blips.
Yeah.
I call them blips. There's also like in the mundane, that's where the safety is. Because it's predictable. So like for me, I know during basketball season, Chris is going to be just like a little kid bouncing around. And I can predict that because we have been together for almost 20 years.
Wow.
And I love seeing that part of him. Just as much as I love the conversation of, what do you want to do for dinner? We're going to ask that of each other every night. I depend on that for safety, though. That predictability, right, is what helps you feel safe in the relationship. And so, you're right, the mundane is life. And the blips are important. The blips are not predictable, though.
But if your whole life was nothing but blips, that'd be such... that'd be
Chaos.
a life
That's called chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love talking to couples about that. Of like, okay, so you've got this thing that you love. Is that a blip or is that normal?
Oh, like what? I won't ask us.
So like, couples will come to me and like, she's having explosive reactions to this, this, and this. And I don't understand why. And I go, okay, how long have you two been together? 8 years. Right. So you guys do have some history together. So would you say that this is normal for her or not normal? And if it's not normal, I go, well, can you ride with the blip? So maybe something else is going on. Maybe it has nothing to do with you. Maybe she doesn't want to leave you. Or like a couple who I used to see a very long time ago. They had explained this situation that had happened, and I reflected to one of the partners, like, it seems like you really just miss this person. Just what I'm hearing is how much you love them and how much this is an anomaly of what you usually experience, and that you miss the predictability and the safety. And if that's the case, if that rings true for you, then perhaps we can open the possibility that this is not going to last. It's just a blip. And it sucks and it's terrible and it's going to work itself through. And so your job is to walk with your partner, not try and nudge them or hold them back.
Well, Anna's like a great example of that. She's like
Good walker.
walking with me the whole way, man. Like, straight
And
up.
you give that to her too. Like, don't dismiss what you also bring here. Like I said, this is earned. Luck is finding a lottery ticket on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Relationships are earned.
Well, my mom always tells me, she's like, she makes it seem like I'm like, not like a terrible person, but she just thinks I'm a big, I'm a load or whatever. And so she's
You're
always
too
like,
emotional.
probably.
Not.
I know, but I think that's
You are just
part of
the right.
I know, I think that's part of it is like,
Yeah.
ugh.
But they
guess.
also get to put, like people who have seen you pre-Anna and with Anna, they get to place all these really unreasonable changes on Anna that have occurred with you. And the unfortunate piece is that they don't give you credit for participating in those changes. And they place too much on Anna by saying that she is solely responsible for it. Without her, this would not happen. Okay, perhaps, but you both did this together.
Yeah.
And families tend to do that of like, they love the spouse. The spouse is everything. So great, big fans. And then they dismiss their family member's journey with this person.
It's true.
Wow. Thank you for that.
And for the spouse,
Yeah.
it's like, you're just sitting there like, wow, like, please stop. Can we also shine a light on this person who I love?
Why are you nodding your head over there?
Well, you always say this thing, you're like, oh, I'm so emotional. And I'm like, really? If you think this is like an extreme emotion, then you are actually very, very calm and boring. Like, maybe it's
good.
extreme for your family, but in like normal everyday life, it's okay to feel things.
You're
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's where it's,
Otherwise, you're an amoeba.
otherwise you're not even enjoying the mundane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think the term too emotional is like someone else's shit.
Yeah.
It's like, they don't know how to deal with the emotion. And so, because it's uncomfortable for them. It's
But
just
that's
this-
what I grew up with is like anytime that I showed my real authentic self, it was like, oh, you're stupid. Like, you're ridiculous. And I'm like, well,
Yeah. What I grew up with always was, you're weird.
yeah.
You're really weird. I was like, I don't know how to interpret that. So
We weirdos, we stick together.
to be my friend, you have
Right?
to have a certain level of weirdness.
You do.
And comfort with it.
Well, I've had a weird, great time with
Me
you
too.
today.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
This has been so much fun. You really, oh man, you were taking all my questions, man. You were like, boom, boom, boom. Thank you for hitting them all.
Thank you. This is a great video series.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for supporting it. Thank you for being here and supporting it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all your amazing wisdom and for helping people out there. Not just me today, but all your clients and all that good stuff. And the LGBT community.
Tribe.
And what better timing, I want to dedicate this episode to my aunt, Yoli, who passed, and to living your life honestly and using language to, how would you say it? How do you
Do the best you can.
to do the best you can. There you go.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, cheers,
Salud.
Brooklyn. Brooklyn's leaving the house. We're sad.
Someone's leaving the house.
Cheers.